At my dad's retirement dinner, he raised his glass and said, "Only the children who made me proud are truly mine." The room erupted in laughter and applause, toasting his legacy. Then he looked at me, the son who became a teacher, not a lawyer or CEO, and said, "You can leave." Silence fell instantly. Forks froze midair. I stood slowly, chest burning, aware cameras were still rolling. My father smiled, and I realized humiliation was part of his speech. Before I could walk away, my wife stood. What she did next silenced everyone in the room. I want to share this story with you. But first, drop a hi in the comments or tell me where you're from. I love seeing how far a story like this reaches. That night, Seattle was washed in rain. By the time I arrived at the Rose Hill Grand Ballroom, my shoes were soaked and my heart already heavy. I had rehearsed a quiet congratulation. Maybe a simple, "I'm proud of you, Dad." But stepping into the glittering ballroom, I knew there'd be no room for that. The banner above the stage read Vail Education Trust, ex-Luminatech Foundation, $6,000 and $1,000 commitments, crystal glasses, ivory linens, a string quartet humming beneath polite chatter. My father, Dr. Bennett Vail, shook hands with superintendents and CEOs, the image of what the education world called excellence, tall, composed, impeccable. And deep down, I still wanted his approval. We were 10 minutes late. Clarice, my stepmother, noted it immediately. Always precise, she smiled with a sharpness that cut through the room. Her sequined gown reflected the chandeliers like armor. "Don't worry, dear, we saved you a good spot." I scanned the VIP table. My name wasn't there. Next to my father's card was Sloane Mercer, Clarice's daughter, the rising corporate attorney. I blinked. Clarice followed my gaze. "You'll find your name at table 19, she said. "We thought you'd be more comfortable with the other educators." The other educators? Table 19 was tucked behind a marble pillar at the ballroom's far end, marked by cheaper linens, wilted flowers, faint perfume. I nodded once, jaw tight. Behind us, laughter and clinking glasses echoed. Sloane glided toward the stage, Clarice already shaking hands with donors. My father never looked at me. Ara's fingers brushed mine. "Don't react yet," she whispered, calm despite everything. She typed something on her phone, flashed the screen, ready. The reply came instantly. When my father took the stage, flashbulbs erupted. He tapped his glass, smiled as if at me, and said, "Tonight marks 30 years of serving education. And as I reflect on my work, I realize only the children who made me proud are truly mine." Laughter followed. Then the line that would echo in my mind for months. "You can leave." The air split. People glanced between us, unsure if it was a joke. It wasn't. My throat locked, but I stood, chair scraping the floor. Ara stood too, her face unreadable, eyes steady. She slipped her phone into her clutch and whispered, "Not yet." The room erupted in applause again, unaware of the exile unfolding. Dr. Patel, near the VIP table, looked down at his phone, frowning. I didn't know it yet, but he had just received a message that would change everything. I should have walked out. Instead, I followed Ara's lead, her hand firm around mine. "We'll stay," she said, "for now." Under the chandelier's cold brilliance, I realized she wasn't scared. She was waiting. Table 19 sat in shadows behind a velvet-draped pillar. Laughter from the main tables reached us only as faint echoes. Around me sat 5 teachers, Miss Chen from math, Mr. Alvarez from history, Mrs. Torres from elementary. Kind, tired, familiar. I reminded myself it didn't matter. I'd been invisible in this family long before tonight. Miss Chen leaned in. "You were supposed to be on the board, weren't you?" "Bennett promised you that seat." I nodded. 3 years ago, he said I'd carry on the foundation's mission. I built proposals for teacher training scholarships, entire programs for underserved schools. Mr. Alvarez let out a dry laugh. "They don't want mission veil. They want money. Teachers don't look good in press photos." Across the room, Clarice paraded Sloane for the cameras. My father guided her hand on his shoulder, introducing her as the next generation of leadership. Ara excused herself, phone pressed to her ear. "Check clause 7.3 and 12.1, she said quietly. Surgical, precise. I focused back on the stage. Sloane spoke to a journalist, hand on my father's chair. "The new board has already been finalized. No need for additional approvals." That phrase echoed, "No need for approvals." At table 19, our silverware didn't match. The flowers were fake, but our conversation was real. Teachers spoke about funding cuts, hungry students, parents working double shifts. While the main table toasted innovation and partnerships, we shared the stories the foundation had ignored. Ara returned, sitting beside me, lipstick smudged at the edge. She whispered, "Dr. Patel got the documents. He'll check his email when the time comes." I tried to piece it together. "What are you doing?" She didn't move her eyes from the stage. "Just trust me." The word felt foreign, but I did. In a room that had erased me, she hadn't. Clarice's voice rose over the music. "This is Sloan, my daughter, the youngest attorney to lead our education legal division." She paused deliberately, then added, "And that's Bennett's son, Dusk. He teaches high school science. Such noble work." The pause before noble was deliberate, sharp, like sugar-coated criticism. I forced a polite smile, squeezing Ara's hand under the table. "Not yet," she mouthed. From across the ballroom, I saw Dr. Patel glance at his phone again. Something was shifting. Ara wasn't just defending my pride, she was orchestrating a bigger plan. The music softened into a slow instrumental. Servers cleared plates. My father readied his final announcement, the one he had rehearsed for years. Around me, teachers glanced at him, resigned. I sat in the dark corner, remembering nights spent building his legacy, drafting proposals, connecting educators, writing speeches, all so he could one day say he was proud. Instead, he handed it all to someone else. Ara's phone buzzed. She read the message, slipping it back into her purse. Her eyes met mine. Almost time. I realized then she wasn't waiting for permission. She was waiting for his mistake. The ballroom lights dimmed. The LED wall behind the stage flashed a headline, Vail Education Trust Leadership Announcement. I already knew what was coming, the rhythm of applause, polite laughter, my father's practiced authority. But this time it felt sharper, personal. He smiled into the microphone. "For 30 years, we've built this foundation on excellence, discipline, and vision. Tonight, I'm proud to announce the next generation of leadership." Clarice stood at the stage base, hand on Sloane's shoulder. Cameras zoomed in. My name wasn't called. "Please welcome the newborn successor of the Vail Education Trust, Sloan Mercer," my father said. Applause thundered. Sloan accepted it as if it had always been hers. I remained still, watching a crowd celebrate what had been promised to me. 3 years of work, all erased. Ara sat beside me, unmoved. She checked her watch, then Dr. Patel's. Calculating. Composed. Clarice leaned toward the MC near the stage. I caught a fragment. "Pushed the teacher recognition segment to the end." The MC nodded. The program skipped directly to the sponsor presentation. The LED screen lit up, Luminitech Foundation in partnership with Vail Education Trust. My stomach tightened. I'd seen that logo on Ara's laptop weeks ago, grant reviews, details I hadn't asked about. Sloan posed for photographs with Clarice and my father as the MC announced sponsors. Dr. Patel stayed seated, expression unreadable, tension visible. Something inside me broke. I pushed my chair back. Clarice intercepted me. "Dusk, don't cause a scene. This is a family moment." "I'm family, aren't I? Or is that conditional now?" I asked. Her smile twitched. "You're overreacting." "No," I said. "I'm finally reacting." Guests whispered. My father ignored me, still speaking to cameras. Ara rose beside me, hand on my arm. "Not yet," she said. "We're not asking for a seat. We're reading a contract." Calm, precise. I followed her gaze to Dr. Patel, scrolling his phone. The music swelled. My father lifted his glass. Sloane's confidence faltered. Applause rolled again, but something had changed. Celebration now sounded like tension. I stood at the edge of the lights, watching the man who had erased me, unaware that he had signed his own undoing. My father thrived under the spotlight, every word measured for effect. "Education must evolve," he said. "It needs leadership that bridges academia and business. Sloan Mercer embodies that vision." Glasses clinked. To them, inspiring. To me, a scalpel cutting through my own bloodline. I watched him toast to the new era while standing half in shadow. Sloane's lawyerly poise under hot stage lights, her nods practiced. I had imagined being there myself, presenting teaching as valuable. Instead, I was the afterthought. Then I saw Ara move. Phone out, typing quickly. Tiny nod toward someone near the stage. Dr. Patel's phone buzzed. He unlocked it, froze. The screen reflected in his glasses. Words on the display. Contract document attached. His eyes met hers briefly. Confirmation. My father's voice boomed again. "This foundation is a beacon for the next century of education." I stepped forward. Clarice intercepted, hissing, "Don't!" "He already did that for me," I said. Sloane looked down, panic replacing composure. "Some people should learn to accept their place," she muttered. Ara stepped toward the podium. "Excuse me," she said, calm and clear. Every head turned. "Before you continue, we should review the terms of the contract your foundation signed with Luminitech. Clause 7.3 outlines the requirement for active educator representation on the board." Silence fell, thick and tense. My father's smile stiffened. "Mrs. Vale, I don't recall inviting you to comment on internal decisions." Ara didn't flinch. "Then perhaps you should reread the agreement you signed 6 months ago." Cameras swiveled. Dr. Patel stepped forward, phone in hand. "She's correct," he said. "The contract requires prior sponsor approval before any leadership announcement." The audience murmured. My father's composure cracked. He turned to me, sharp. "You did this, didn't you? You brought her in to embarrass me." "No, Dad," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Clarice whispered urgently, drowned out by the buzz. Reporters moved closer. Phones raised. The LED screen blinked, new text scrolling. Contract Clause 7.3, active educator requirement. Gasps swept the room. Ara handed the microphone to Dr. Patel. He read aloud. "Any board appointment must include at least one current classroom educator and requires written approval from the sponsor prior to announcement. Failure to comply constitutes immediate breach of contract." Silence wasn't polite anymore. Judgment hung in the air. My father's hand trembled on his glass. Clarice turned pale. Sloane's eyes darted nervously. I stood steady, Ara's face calm, unflinching. She had been building this all evening, arranging every piece while everyone else played pretend. My father tried to laugh it off, voice cracking. "We'll resolve this privately. These are formalities." Dr. Patel's tone was firm. "No, Dr. Vale, this contract is binding." The tension pressed on everyone. Cameras kept flashing. Somewhere, a waiter dropped a tray, the crash echoing through the room. Ara looked at me. One glance said it all. The moment was here. I didn't need to speak. The screen behind them glowed white, the contract clause shining like a verdict. The night had shifted. What began as my father's celebration was now a reckoning he hadn't anticipated. The ballroom lost its polished shape. Lights flickered, champagne spilled, voices overlapped in disbelief. Cameras zoomed in as Clarice tried to call security, waving her diamond-crusted wrist. No one moved. All eyes were on the stage. Ara stood beneath the enormous LED screen, calm, precise. She read aloud, Clause 7.3, the governing board must include at least one active educator. All appointments must be approved in writing by Luminitech Foundation before public announcement. Dr. Patel stepped forward, phone in hand. Confirmed, signed by both parties. His voice was almost apologetic, but his eyes were firm. My father's jaw tightened. "Who gave you permission to access that document?" His voice trembled, the first sign of fear I'd ever heard in him. Ara didn't hesitate. "I did." After a long pause, she added, "I'm the one who signed it." My father blinked, shocked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you should know who your partners are before humiliating them," she replied, calm. She turned to the audience. "My name is Alar Vale. I am the founder and CEO of Luminitech Foundation." For 3 seconds, the room stopped breathing. Cameras froze. Even the orchestra faltered mid-note. Clarice's champagne glass shattered against the floor. My father opened his mouth, but no words came. Sloane stepped forward, panic replacing her earlier composure. "That's impossible," she said. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "She is telling the truth. Her foundation documents list her as the primary signatory. This partnership exists because of her." Ara raised her hand toward the LED screen. A new slide and email thread appeared. "This," she said, "is from the Vale Foundation's legal office, sent by Miss Mercer." She pointed to Sloane's name. It states, "We'll announce first. They are only sponsors. They have no real authority." The room murmured. Clarice's face turned porcelain pale. Dr. Patel added, "That statement alone constitutes a breach under Section 12.1. The partnership is void." My father lunged forward. "You came here to destroy me." "No," Ara said quietly. "You did that when you forgot what this foundation was built for." Reporters surged closer. Phones lifted. Live feeds replayed the moment. Hashtags appeared. Vale scandal. Comments streamed. Father disowns son on stage. Son's wife reveals fraud. My father's voice trembled. "Patel, there must be a way to save this, to save the foundation." Patel's reply was gentle but firm. "You can't save something built on broken promises." Ara turned to the crowd. "Luminitech will establish a new fund, run entirely by active educators. Not the boardrooms, but those who actually teach." I stepped closer to my father, voice quiet. You once said, only the children who made you proud are yours. His eyes flickered, wounded. I took a breath. From now on, I'm not yours. Silence fell. Even cameras seemed to pause. Dr. Patel spoke again, clinical. Effective immediately, the $6 million partnership between Luminatech Foundation and Vail Education Trust is terminated. The meaning reverberated. My father's empire, his influence, the identity he wore like armor, vanished in an instant. Ara faced the press. Tonight, Luminatech reallocates all $6 million to create the Vail Renewal Fund, run entirely by active educators, those who actually stand in classrooms. The crowd erupted. Flashes captured the chaos. Yet in the center, I felt still. I looked at my father one last time. He sat frozen, glass untouched, reflection fractured. Ara reached for my hand. I told you, she said softly. We don't need their table. We build our own. The lights flared. The golden letters of his name flickered and faded. The night hadn't destroyed us. It had rewritten us. Rose Hill Ballroom was chaos in glitter. Half the guests left. The rest clutched phones, filming the downfall of a legend. My father remained seated, motionless. Clarice hid her face. Sloane's phone lit up with urgent messages. Someone handed me a microphone. I shook my head. Ara pressed it into my hand. You told your students to stand up for what's right. Do it now, she said. I stepped into the light. Cameras flashed. 12 years ago, I began as a teacher. My father said I was wasting potential. 3 years ago, he promised me a board seat, then gave it to someone else. Tonight, I wasn't seeking revenge. I wanted to show that what he looked down on still mattered. The crowd stilled. The sound crew stopped. Dr. Patel announced, for the record, Luminitech Foundation has withdrawn all sponsorship from Vail Education Trust. The foundation is officially defunct. A journalist shouted, Dr. Vail, do you plan to sue? My father didn't answer. Comments scrolled on monitors. Respect for teachers. He's the real Vail. Then he snapped. Lunging from his chair, microphone in hand, voice trembling, I raised you, and this is how you repay me? I looked straight at him. You didn't raise me. You raised your image. I was just a prop. Gasps cut through the room. Clarice grabbed his arm. Ara stepped forward. Before this becomes another speech, one more document. She nodded to the technician. The screen changed, showing an email with my father's signature. Ignore the clause. Announce before the gala. Ara turned to him. No one trapped you, Bennett. You broke your own bridge. Dr. Patel confirmed quietly, the trust is dissolved. I bent down, picked up my badge from the podium, Dusk Vail educator, and laid it flat. I don't need anyone to call me their son. As long as my students call me their teacher, that's enough. One by one, teachers stood at table 19. The entire back of the room joined in, applause rippling forward until even the front rows clapped. My father left the stage silently. Ara held my hand. You just taught them more in 10 minutes than he did in 30 years, she said. The chandeliers dimmed. Stage lights cooled. For the first time that night, the light felt honest, simple, real. 6 weeks later, Rose Hill was quiet again. No lights, no orchestra, no applause, just the echo of chairs being arranged for the first board meeting of the Vail Renewal Fund. I looked around the same room that had humiliated me. This is where he told me to leave, I said. Now it's where I sign our first grant. Ara smiled, flipping through a folder. It's poetic, really. His ballroom. Our beginning. The fallout had been swift. My father was forced into early retirement. Clarice left Seattle without a word. Sloane's firm suspended her after the plagiarism review confirmed everything. News outlets labeled it the Vail scandal. Universities used it as a case study on integrity. Meanwhile, Ara and I rebuilt. She assumed her rightful roles as CEO of Luminitech and executive director of the new fund. I remained a teacher, just as I had always been. The Vail Renewal Fund was already sponsoring classrooms, teacher grants, and scholarships across 120 schools, reaching 300 educators. At our first press event, I stood at the podium and said, if they don't give you a seat at the main table, build your own. Behind me hung a plank of reclaimed wood engraved, for every teacher who was told they were just a teacher. A week later, my phone rang. My father's voice was smaller, rougher than I'd ever heard. You won. Are you happy now? I didn't win, I told him. I just stopped losing. He asked to meet, wanting to apologize. I told him what it would take, 6 months of therapy and a public apology to the teaching community. He hung up. I stood there realizing I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. During our next board meeting, we deliberately kept the same corner where table 19 had once been. We'll keep it here, I said, so we never forget where change begins. Dr. Patel walked over. Then this corner is now the command center. Laughter filled the room, light and earned. Midway through the meeting, a staffer handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. You told me different doesn't mean less. I believed you. I'm studying to be a teacher. I tried to read it aloud but couldn't finish. The room clapped quietly, soft and certain. Later that evening, Ara asked, "If your father calls again?" I smiled. "I'll answer. I don't need him to admit anything. I already did." She reached for my hand. That's freedom. Before we left, I turned to the stage where it had all started. He had said, "You can leave." I whispered, and I did. Then I came back, with everyone who had been overlooked. We don't sit at the back anymore. We are the table. Somewhere, children's voices echoed from a video on Ara's phone, students from the classrooms we'd supported saying, "Thank you, teachers. Value doesn't need permission. Respect doesn't come from titles. Sometimes you need a night of collapse to realize you were the light all along." The night hadn't just ended a legacy. It had built a new one, rooted in integrity, in teachers, in truth. And for the first time, I felt the power of standing for what mattered, not for approval.